Okay, should we get going, Norm?
Yeah, sounds good. So hello and welcome to our webinar with Cloud Academy on AWS reInvent 2021 Unpacked. First, I'd like to introduce everybody on this call. My name is Noam Bunder. I'm a content architect. We are joined by Stuart Scott, who is our AWS content lead. We also have Will Meadows, a senior content creator with AWS. We have Jorge Negron, AWS content architect. And want to let you all know that this is being recorded, so if you don't have a chance to watch it right now, we will send out a link to the recording. We're also taking questions in the chat box, and we'll address any questions that you might have at the end of our talk. So let me kick this off myself. I'll say this is my first reInvent that I've attended, and I was really just impressed with the amount of people that showed up, coming out of COVID, knowing that everybody was vaccinated. It was just nice to see so many people there, a lot of great energy, a lot of great excitement, especially in all the keynotes, and just huge an amount of attendees, both the Venetian, Palazzo, the Wynn. It was really great. So I think I'll direct my first question over to Stu. Stu, what did you think about some of the new compute and storage services that were announced?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Norm. Just to follow up from what you said about the sheer number of people. I remember my first reInvent. It was a little bit overwhelming. I wasn't sure what to kind of expect, but you're walking through the corridors of these hotels, and they're just jam packed, and these are wide spaces. It's just people everywhere all the time. So. But yeah, I'm glad you had a good time. I didn't make it there this year, but hopefully next year I'll be there in person with the rest of the Cloud Academy team. So yeah, back to reInvent and the services and the new features, etc. There was a ton of stuff announced across loads of different domains for analytics, machine learning, networking, application integration, and a ton more. I just want to touch on some of the storage ones that you may have seen announced during the keynotes or just kind of soft releases in the background. So just want to run through some of those storage ones. The first one I'll talk about is the new offline tape migration using AWS Snowball Edge. So this is essentially a new capability that sits within the Snow family. And part of the Snow family you have the Snow Cone, the Snowball, and the Snowmobile. And these are really used to help you remove the constraints such as limited bandwidth and high connection costs or high latency when you're trying to transfer data into and out of AWS. So this new tape migration with the Snowball Edge, you can use this to get your physical tapes into AWS. So you'd order the Snowball, it would arrive, and then you can migrate your tape infrastructure onto Snowball and then send it into AWS for them to load on the cloud. Once your tape backups are in the cloud in AWS, probably S3, then you can use the virtual tape library that integrates with AWS Storage Gateway to then access that tape data. And these Snowball devices, they handle up to 80 terabytes of storage. It's secure, it's rugged, and it's trackable, just like the rest of the Snow family, if you're familiar with it at all. And it's really easy to use, using the AWS Management Console. It's got a very easy UI, especially if you've not used the Snowball family before. But yeah, it's just a great way of getting your tape data or your old physical tapes into the cloud without relying on an internet connection or kind of restrictions on network bandwidth capabilities and costs as well. So that was the first one that kind of caught my eye. The next one was to do with Amazon S3 and AWS Backup. So AWS Backup now supports Amazon S3. For those unfamiliar with backup, it uses a centralized service to help you manage your backups across different resources and automate your backups across different services. And it uses policies to govern what should be backed up and when. Those already using AWS Backup will know that it already supports services like EC2, DynamoDB tables, EFS, EBS, Neptune, and there's a ton of others too. I think there's like 12 or 13 services that it integrates with now. But the announcement was that it now supports S3, so you can back up your S3 buckets using AWS Backup. So you might have application data that you want to have in a centralized backup, which is being stored on S3, and you can use AWS Backup to do that. And you can create different backup options as well. For example, you can create a point-in-time backup of your S3 bucket, or schedule backups over a given time period. And it's very easy to restore as well. It's a couple of clicks and you have your restore of your S3 backup. So that's what AWS has done. Like this reInvent, I think they've simplified a lot of things, a lot of features, and a lot of services. So you'll see things kind of getting easier and easier, which is kind of good, but also you want to know what's happening underneath all of that, which I kind of like.
Were any of the services sort of renamed?
Yes, and I'll come to that in just a moment. Actually, when because I haven't finished with S3, there's a couple of announcements on it. So we've got some renames of storage classes. But just before I move on to that, with regards to the backup, AWS Backup, you can use existing backup plans that you already have, that you already use, and you just add the S3 components to it. And it also integrates with AWS organizations as well. So you can use one backup policy for your S3 backups across multiple different AWS accounts that you have. So not leaving S3, we've got some new storage classes and name changes as well in the world of S3. So the first new class is S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval Storage class. When they started announcing these new storage classes, straight away I thought people are just going to get even more confused as to what storage class to use, because there's already a list of about 7 or 8, and it can be confusing sometimes to know which storage class you should use for one particular workload. So just to let you know, going forward, I'll be creating a course on this to help you really understand how to manage your workloads on S3 and which storage class you should use. So keep a lookout for that. But this S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval Storage class is basically used for use cases where you need long-term storage at low cost, but you also require that immediate millisecond retrieval of that data should you need it. And this sits between 2 other storage classes. It kind of sits between the infrequent access of S3 and then the other Glacier storage classes. Now, the next one that was announced was a part of intelligent tiering, so a new intelligent tiering class, and this is the archive instant access tier. So this tier has been designed to be used for workloads that are either unknown or have changing access patterns. And it's optimized for data that isn't accessed for kind of months at a time rather than days. And it automatically optimizes your storage costs for rarely accessed data that needs instant retrieval. Now, for those that have used intelligent tiering before, you will know that there's 2 other tiers in there. We have the frequent and the infrequent tiers. So this is the 3rd tier for the intelligent tiering. Now, what happens is if you have an object that's not been accessed for 30 consecutive days, then that object is moved from the frequent tier to the infrequent access tier. And this is a cheaper tier, so it's trying to save you money. Now, what we have now is that when an object hasn't been accessed for 90 consecutive days, then S3 intelligent tiering will move the object from the infrequent access to the archive instant access tier with a cost saving of approximately 68%. I say approximately, that's pretty precise, but that's what they're saying. It gives about 68% saving. Now, the last element is a name change of the existing storage class of Amazon S3 Glacier storage class, which is now called the S3 Glacier Flexible Retrieval. So you can see that there's quite a bit of confusion here, I think, will happen for people. So it's worth taking a bit of time to look into this. Now, this existing storage class, although it's been renamed, it does offer some additional benefits. It gives free bulk retrieval in 5 to 12 hours. And the storage price has also been reduced by 10% in all regions. And this will be effective, or was effective, from the 1st of December. So there's 3 classes of Glacier now. You have the S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval, which is for long-lived data that's rarely accessed, but the data is available in milliseconds. So this is kind of great for news media. You have S3 Glacier flexible retrieval backup. So it's that's great for backup DR and large amounts of long-term, rarely accessed data. But retrieval costs aren't an issue for you, then this is great. And if you don't need the data back straight away, then that's also good because it's not instant retrieval. And then you also have the deep archive, which, as you probably know, this is the lowest cost storage in AWS for archive storage, and you can restore data in at least 12 hours. So that's kind of the S3 storage classes. Moving on from there, there's just a couple more points on storage that I just want to touch relating to EBS. So there's two kind of smaller feature announcements of EBS, which I think are pretty cool. You have the recycle bin for EBS snapshots now. So this is a great feature for those of us that might accidentally delete EBS snapshots that we should have kept, which can happen. You can get a lot of EBS snapshots there and you think, oh, do I need it, do I not? And you kind of delete it, only to realize that, yeah, you did actually need it. So you can create different retention rules to retain deleted snapshots so that you can recover from them, like I say, in an accidental deletion. You simply set up some retention period in those rules against different EBS snapshots. And you can also base this on resource tags of those snapshots as well to capture a bunch in one go. And it's a good idea as well to use different IAM users to manage the retention and restoration of EBS snapshots, because then this generally allows you to create a two-stage deletion process. So one team might delete the EBS snapshot by accident, but then you have another team that looks after the restoration and management of the recycle bin of EBS. So you should always be able to get it back. And then we also have Amazon EBS Snapshots Archive. And this is basically a new storage tier for EBS and your snapshots. It allows you to keep certain snapshots for months at a time or even longer. You might want to do this perhaps for compliance reasons. However, this storage tier allows you to do it more cost effectively. So storing your snapshots in this new archive class can help you achieve up to 75% lower storage costs. But the restore for your archive snapshot will take between 24 to 72 hours. So that's just a roundup of some of the storage elements that that were announced. Like I say, some of them kind of soft release in the background, not in the keynotes, and others were. So I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of those.
I had an interesting thought for the audience.
Yeah.
So for the S3 intelligent tiering, how does that sort of compare to just using generic lifecycle policies? That might be a question someone would ask in general.
So your lifecycle policies will move your objects from one storage class to another, but the intelligent tiering is one storage class itself. So you can move it to intelligent tiering, but then the intelligent tiering element takes over and then manages those objects for you based on when those objects were accessed.
So probably good if you want a more hands-off approach, I would assume.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely. If you're unsure of the access patterns of that data, and you want to try and manage your costs a bit more cost effectively, then you can put it into the intelligent tiering. And then maybe over time you can review those objects when they were and weren't accessed, and then move that data to a more appropriate storage class to save even more money.
And so this new addition to the intelligent tiering is just another level to save money, so I can keep my hands off of it in general.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great announcement about that the option to move the tape backups off site. I remember always being impressed by these big robots that move the tapes around, back in the day. So
yeah, it's just a great way to get your tapes into AWS, and then, like I say, you can then leverage the virtual tape library with the storage gateway to then access that data easily and retrieve it and restore it whenever you need to.
I did have
Cool.
under the purview of the stuff I was looking at, which was machine learning stuff, they actually lumped in some database, and this is kind of storagey, so I want to throw it in real quick if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
So DynamoDB got a new storage class as well, which was standard and frequent access table classes. So this is very similar to S3 infrequent access, where if you've got some data that you need to hold on to, but you don't want to poke it that much, this new way to store your data with the standard and frequent access class for DynamoDB is up to 60% cheaper. So for example, a gigabyte of data in a DynamoDB table would cost you 60 cents. This new stuff would be 25 cents per gigabyte. So that's not bad at all. Oh, sorry, it's 25 cents for the standard and 10 cents for infrequent. I have a different number for this other one. The part where you get charged more, obviously, is for your writes and reads. So if we were looking at the on-demand cost for a write, it'd be $1.2 per million writes, and then $0.25 per million reads, as opposed to, this is where we get charged back with the new table class, 1.56 and 0.31 respectively. So it's about a 30% more money on your reads and writes, but you save 60% on the storage itself. So something to think about in that ballpark.
Yep.
More storage classes.
Yeah. So Jorge, what are some of the services that you saw in terms of announcements from keynotes or perhaps?
I notice a number of services that are a lot about increasing the reach of AWS or AWS know-how to a variety of individuals. So the first observation that I noticed was very significant is the addition of a new pillar to the well-architected framework. This was introduced by Amazon CTO for AWS, Werner Vogels. This is the sustainability pillar. And this is impactful because the well-architected framework document is a reference document that gets quoted repeatedly in AWS certifications exams. And it joins us the sixth pillar where you have operational excellence, for example, security. I usually speak about security first and foremost, but you have operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, and cost optimization. This is basically a gathering of knowledge that AWS puts together in the form of a number of questions that you can ask in order to perform the discovery process to know what situation is it that you're in terms of your current IT implementation. Also questions that relate to best practices, the way AWS has accumulated through experience by working with different customers. So this sustainability pillar is a way to permit now customers to join in this environmental best practices for computing that has been in the news, the greening of IT. There's a number of phrases for it. I thought this was very innovative. It's simply a way for AWS to share and reach a broader set of individuals. So along those same lines of expanding the reachability, I noticed also AWS Amplify Studio. Now, this is just a tool, integrated tool. The benefit here is that it permits full stack development within AWS with the Amplify suite of services. And in this case, you get a visual development environment to manufacture the user interface with prefabricated elements of user interface, and you can import, edit as needed. But more importantly, it allows you to wire everything from the UI all the way to the back end using the Amplify suite of tools. So this is a way for developers, perhaps back-end developers now, to be a little more involved with the front end, become full stack developers. That's an expansion in skill set, an expansion in opportunities, a way to perhaps create better quality results simply because you're able to maintain cohesion between the different layers. Usually that entails communication between different teams. So I saw that one as a kind of democratizing. Another area of reaching more individuals is the introduction of the new software development kits. And we're talking new SDKs for Swift, which is Apple's preferred language for software development these days. It replaces Objective-C as what's considered now a legacy language, hasn't received any modernization since the late 80s, maybe early 90s. So it's been around for a while. Swift now, it's replacing it as an efficient syntax, easy to learn, is being used as the first programming language for a number of elementary school children. Kotlin, consider it Java's grandchild in that it's efficient in syntax, is Java compliant, it can import Java libraries. So Kotlin is also a language that is modern, it's efficient, it's compatible with Java, it's gaining a lot of momentum. And last but not least, Rust. Rust is actually the type of language that is very memory efficient. It's efficient in terms of the footprint that it takes. doesn't have any garbage collection. Memory management is highly optimized. So Rust is getting a lot of popularity. Even the Dr. Werner Vogels paid some attention to the Rust SDK. So there are a number of services that have come up that simply make things easier for developers, easier to develop the front UI. Another example is the AWS Software Developers Kit. It's now on version 2. And the big takeaway there is that if you have used CDK version 1, you most likely got used to have to import the packages for each of the services that you wanted to use, you know, to create a smaller footprint in the final executable. Now, everything of that has been bundled into one import. And the idea there is that if you have a complex application that in terms of the CDK is tapping into anything more than a dozen services, the whole import packaging becomes a little bit of a heavy burden. So now one single package will allow you to tap into any service that you want. And that's an efficiency mechanism right then and there, saving time, saving effort. And then last but not least, Construct Hub. Think of it as a repository for a prefabricated functionality that is compatible with the Cloud Developers Kit. It's compatible even with the Terraform Developers Kit, a number of other CDKs that are available. So Construct Hub becomes a repository, a registry of prefabricated functionality developed using this cloud development frameworks. So those are the services that I noticed kind of take a little bit of a step in the right direction as far as being able to include more individuals that perhaps didn't have any background expertise, individuals that are now preferring certain tools like Swift, Kotlin languages, now are able to get 100% into the AWS ecosystem.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jorge. And Will, how about on the AI/ML side? Have you seen any interesting announcements that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, there was some neat stuff. So I think I'll open up with talking about SageMaker Ground Truth Plus. Let me just say there was like a lot of additions to SageMaker on this update. Not a whole lot of new services in the machine learning realm, but definitely SageMaker got a nice boost, the boost we enjoy for machine learning.
I think in like previous reInvents, SageMaker always gets some attention, I think, and it was the same this year as well.
Yeah, it's the child, you know. It's like, all right, come on, our chosen one. Let's see if we can get something good. So what was the nice part? Okay, so a little bit ago we had Ground Truth come out for SageMaker, and this is something that can help you with labeling your data sets. You've got images that are coming in from your cameras or from wherever, and they've got dogs and they got people and they've got cars. So that stuff doesn't come pre-labeled. So either you painfully by hand do it yourself, or you have your team of interns do it, or you use Ground Truth, and Ground Truth will take your images and send it over to Amazon Mechanical Turk, which is someone else's different paid team of interns, not yours, and they're cheaper. And then they will label the data for you. The problem is if you have very specific data labeling, like, I don't know, medical imagery, specifically checking for maybe bone cancers or fractures or something that was specific that you wouldn't want to trust to some random person on the internet to label for you, they've got this new Ground Truth Plus. And this new update promises to have a team of experts, we'll see how well that works, go through your labeling and try to do it well for you over Mechanical Turk. So the way this works, in order to do this, you have to fill out a form. AWS will give you a call. They will set up a meeting with you to discuss what it is that you're trying to get labeled on your training data. You give them a little bit of time, they'll go find the experts for you. And then eventually you put all your training data into a bucket. And then at some point it starts. And then once it starts, the experts will go through and start to do the labeling that you would expect as normal. And then a machine learning algorithm is following them and watching all the things they're labeling as well. And so as they go, the algorithm itself and the model will start poking ahead of wherever they are in their task and try to label it for them. And if it's correct, obviously the experts will give it a thumbs up. If it's not, they'll give it a thumbs down and relabel it themselves. And so theoretically, though it may cost a little bit more up front, once this little thing, this new model has been trained by the experts, it should be able to do the rest of the job for them, or at least speed up the efficiency. That's kind of cool. Theoretically, I think this will work really well. This is one of those things I'll have to see how it works in practice. So I don't know, I think that's neat. Don't you think that's neat?
That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
I think that's pretty cool.
And that's one of the biggest hurdles when it comes to be able to classify material through machine learning, the whole concept of labeling. What is exactly this thing? And a lot of times it used to require human intervention. Now automation is just continues to improve, make it easier, faster, better.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how much it really costs, because I couldn't find anything specific on the page. So maybe it's a job by job that they'll give you a bill for it. But oh, neat. What was another cool one I want to talk about? Let's see. Yeah, SageMaker Canvas. So this was a neat one that, all right, let me give you the premise. So you've got somebody who's like a business development person or a business admin who's got like a sheet of, let's say, product data. And your products are like every item you sell, where your customers were that you shipped it to, whether it was on time or if it was late, what the distance was to that customer that you shipped it. So you've got this Excel spreadsheet, right? You can shove it into SageMaker Canvas, which is an entire drag and drop machine learning interface, so they say, and it looked like it, where you can plug that in and make a quick little model that can do predictive analysis on that for you without having to have any machine learning background, without having to have any real AWS experience, so they say. And it can start making predictions for you. So you would plug in another data set of maybe new possible orders, and it could give you a prediction whether those would arrive on time or not. That was the example they gave. And just having the power to have this paint by numbers machine learning for, I don't know, introductory to machine learning for business people, I thought was very powerful, to use the Amazon speak. It was democratizing machine learning for more people, which is always good. It's not super friendly to get into from the face of it. So that was nifty. I recommend taking a look at that one.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think that will be well received within the industry as well, because more and more things are moving to ML, but sometimes you need that specialist knowledge to kind of get started and going, but they're making it a lot easier.
Yeah, that's well, speaking of that, to make it a little bit even more easier, is they released SageMaker Studio Lab, which is, so without any AWS account, without any credit cards, and with zero knowledge whatsoever, AWS will give you this Studio Lab account for free. There's probably some like qualifications in there, where they will give you 8 or 12 hours of CPU time and 4 hours of GPU time per session to enjoy as you please, to just play around in the machine learning space. This is basically setting up a Jupyter notebook for you, or like that, where you could download from GitHub any of the already pre-built things from there, and you can play around and mess with it for free. So there's no worrying about damaging your AWS credit card bill with whoever you're playing around with, or your account, your boss's account, the company's account. So this is nice. Like if you just want to go home and sign up for this, and they say it's free, so you get your 12 hours of CPU or GPU time to play with all the frameworks like PyTorch, TensorFlow, and all the other good stuff. So if you don't know anything about machine learning, go watch a quick YouTube video and then go try to get a free account and go play with it for free. That's what I recommend. That also seemed really cool. And I guess my final last spot. Oh, go ahead.
No, I said I like that one. Absolutely, it makes it easier. I can add, if you have any questions, there's actually a new service that was introduced, AWS Repo, and this is basically a replacement to AWS Forums, and it aggregates the collected intelligence of AWS customers, partners, employees, folks like us that have been back and forth in cloud and AWS on a regular basis. So it's basically a service that puts you in touch. It's even plugged in directly to AWS support. And the idea here is that if you have a question, you get a legit answer, you get an answer that is useful, an answer that is applicable, basically improving the fidelity as opposed to the noise when it comes to these services. I wonder if it becomes something like Stack Overflow, the reference for developers to go and ask questions and get logical, intelligent, usable answers. So AWS Repos is about to prove itself, and it was introduced this week in reInvent.
That's awesome. I like useful and applicable. Those are valuable. I guess the last thing to sort of finish up my spiel is AWS is throwing out some scholarship program funding for the underrepresented and underserved high school and college students. So if you are one of those people on the call, I highly recommend you go check this out. It's free education, free money. I guess I'm the free guy today. So I like machine learning. So if I can get the free and the machine learning together, we've done well. So I recommend this one. Go take a look at it. It's if it works for you, give it a go.
And I had a question for Stu about the some of the new compute features that you've seen announced.
Yeah, there was a bunch of stuff announced in the compute side of things for new processes to new instance types. So one of the new instance types was the EC2 M1 Mac instances, which are used if you're looking to build and test applications for iPads, your Macs, your Apple Watch, your phone, basically anything Apple. Apple TV as well. So they used to give you a great option to quickly provision Mac OS environments in AWS. Now the Mac instances were announced last year, I think. I think it was in last reInvent. But this year they've basically expanded their instance types to support Mac OS and iOS workloads with this new M1 Mac instance. And it basically lets you access machines built around the Apple designed M1 system on chip. And they deliver up to 60% better performance against the x86 based EC2 Mac instances. From a hardware perspective, they're powered by a Mac Mini, which has the M1 chip with 8 CPU cores, 8 GPU cores, 16 gig of memory, and a 16-core Apple Neural Engine. In addition to this, they're also based on the AWS Nitro system with 10 gigabits of VPC network bandwidth and 8 gigabits per second of EBS storage bandwidth using a high-speed Thunderbolt connection. So that's a new instance type on the Mac side. We've also got a couple of new storage optimized instances as well. We've got the IM4GN and the IS4Gen. These are both powered by the Graviton 2 processor. And the key characteristics for these instances is that they deliver high disk I/O performance with a ton of storage capacity as well. We've already got a number of different storage optimized instances, such as the D2, the I2 and I3s, the D3s, etc. So this is just another one that's been added to the instance family. I've got 30 terabytes of NVMe storage using AWS Nitro SSD devices, and this helps to reduce your I/O latency by up to 60%. They're used to support high-speed access to large amounts of data. Now, the IM4GN, this is ideal for applications that demand large amounts of dense SSD storage and high compute performance, but they're not necessarily that memory intensive. The IS4Gen instances have been built for apps that do large amounts of random I/O to large amounts of SSD storage. From a performance perspective, they're both more cost effective and better when compared to the previous i3 storage optimized instances. We've also got another new instance type, the EC2 G5G instance, which is also powered by AWS Graviton 2. Man, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of EC2 instance families, a lot of storage classes. Yeah, it can take a while to get your head around them. I don't think anyone's going to really know every instance type. But anyway, going back to the G5Gs. So they extend the Graviton 2 price performance benefits to GPU-based workloads, including graphics applications and machine learning inference, etc. So some of the use cases can be streaming Android gaming, graphics rendering, autonomous vehicle simulations, etc. And they also feature, from a hardware perspective, an NVIDIA T4G Tensor Core GPU with 25 gigabits per second of networking bandwidth and 19 gigabits of EBS bandwidth. And these are available in 6 different instance sizes, starting from the XL through to 2XL, 4, 8, 16, all the way up to Metal being the highest performing of them all. And then I just want to highlight the EC2 C7G instances, and these are powered by the new Graviton 3 processor that was announced. So the Graviton 3 is new. It's a custom designed by AWS, and it's 25% faster than the existing Graviton 2 processors. And it also achieves better price performance than the previous Graviton processors as well. And they have twice the amount of floating point performance when running compute-intensive workloads. So this is kind of a great choice if you're looking to support and run high compute workloads, for example, ML that Will's been talking about today, batch processing, scientific modeling, etc. And like I say, this is a new instance that now runs on a Graviton 3 processor. I think it's the first one. So yeah, great choice for your HPC stuff, your gaming, distributed analysis. And it's the first also instance type offered by AWS that comes with DDR5 memory, and this gives you enhanced speeds for accessing any data stored in memory. Compared to the C6G instances, it has a 50% increase in memory bandwidth, and it also has an increase of network bandwidth of 20%, running at 30 gigabits per second. And it supports EFA, the elastic fabric adapters, as well. So I know that was quite a lot of information in not a long amount of time, but I just wanted to highlight that there has been a number of new instances out there. So we have the new instance that's powered by the new Graviton 3 processor, which is faster than the Graviton 2s. We've got some instances that are focused on storage optimized, and also the GPU instances as well. Oh, as well as the Mac ones that I started with, which I'd already forgotten about. so yeah, there's quite a few there. It's quite a few there.
It's hard to keep track of them these days. And the thing to remember, which was in one of the keynotes, all of this is customer driven. These instance types are basically requested by customers, workloads that they are implementing. So basically, we
heard that a lot. Yeah, we heard that lots of the keynotes, and I think it was in Werner's. I think he said when we got like 200 services, it's basically all your fault. Implying that it's all the requests from the customers that you're asking for this. This is why we have so many. That's a really good point, Jorge.
It really impressed me is just the wide range of industries and use cases and business use cases that are driving the proliferation of these services. And the services, conversely, are allowing all these different kinds of industries and business use cases to leverage the AWS compute power and storage power, like you mentioned earlier. So really impressive. Yeah, so we have a few questions from the audience. I'll take here. Here's one question here. Although I did not attend this year, it seems to me that new announcements did not have the huge wow factor of the past reInvents. It feels like AWS has reached a level that focuses more on refinement. So what's your take? So anybody want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, I'd kind of agree with that. And we was kind of discussing this offline before this webinar, that I think there's been a lot more enhancements to existing services rather than the big dramatic, new service launches. I mean, there's been a couple, obviously, for example, the AWS Private 5G, which allows you to set up and scale a private mobile, low latency, high bandwidth network in a matter of days. And this simply allows you to implement your own cellular network for your resources. So that was a pretty big announcement. I think some of the SageMaker ones that Will was talking about, the SageMaker Canvas, I think it was. So there has been some definitely new services out there, which are pretty cool. And also we had a bunch of analytic ones, new serverless. I think it was Redshift serverless, EMR serverless, and I think it was MSK serverless as well. So there has been some really cool new services out there, but I did feel like it kind of focused on more enhancing existing.
A lot of add-on services.
Yeah, a lot of
almost all of mine.
Yeah, there's a big breakthrough in the networking space with the announcement of the private WAN feature. I thought that was a big wow fact for me.
Oh yeah, we also got the cell phone service. That was kind of neat.
Absolutely. I was going to point out this year
the 5G
has been more of an improvement than innovation. And in this particular case, the AWS Private 5G is completely new and breakthrough. This is going to be disruptive. If you work in the telecom industry, then you know that 4G LTE is competing with 5G, sometimes even confused. There's a little bit of a tug of war happening with regard to spectrum. The ETAs, the latency for you to be able to provision the correct equipment with the right vendor, to obtain spectrum licenses, to be able to connect it all together and integrate it with your existing environments. It used to be a proposition measured in months, possibly years of latency for you to be able to go from let's do this to okay, it's finally complete. So this is one of those few innovators. The AWS Private 5G brings the 5G network type latencies, which are low latencies, high bandwidth, and it's basically already pre-provisioned with Spectrum. It's already pre-provisioned with the equipment, your console. You define what is it that you want, where do you need it, how many units are you going to be deploying, and then basically AWS ships you the equipment. You insert the SIM chips on the gear and light it up and use it.
They've made it pretty easy. Yeah.
Disruptive, to say the least. Anyone who has done this prior to this service becoming available can tell you it's taken a very long time, and this is going to democratize the 5G. Consider you're doing a conference and you need high-speed, low-latency Wi-Fi. This is the type of service that can make it happen in a matter of days or weeks, as opposed to months or years.
Yeah, I thought also the whole Amplify Studio and just the whole ecosystem of Amplify provides a level of accessibility that is sort of unprecedented with the recent proliferation of more and more, JavaScript licenses and JavaScript SDKs and libraries that you have to kind of get involved with, both on the front end and back end. So it's almost like a easier barrier of entry to both front end and back end developers that we haven't seen in a number of years. And that was a pretty big wow factor for me as well.
Absolutely. I saw also a pretty good introduction, which is the AWS mainframe modernization. And I know that sounds a little bit of legacy, but what's new here is that the type of work. Yes, so the type of work that is happening with mainframes these days, number one, is suffering from a shortage of specialists. Most of the folks that were involved in these implementations are now within retirement age if they're not already retired. So there's a shortage of competent personnel to address mainframe workloads. And the mainframe modernization platform, again, is just an accumulated set of knowledge and know-how that AWS is making available, along with the development tools for you to port your mainframe application to, let's call it a mainframe emulator for the sake of a better term. You can move it to AWS, or you can choose to refactor the application. The golden nugget there is a recommendations engine that gathers the expertise AWS has accumulated with a number of agencies, including the New York Times, and it gives you a recommended plan and analyzes what you have. It tells you, give you a little bit of forensics, what's going on, and it gives you a recommendation if you want to do a lift and shift. You may want to approach it this way. If you want to refactor, you may want to approach it in this other way. And it provides you compilers to translate from COBOL or PL1 into Java, which is pretty significant. So that's a little bit of old technology that has been revamped with a new service, very innovative, and is going to basically open the accessibility doors to new talent to now pick up on these legacy mainframe workloads.
Mm-hmm. Let's see if we have any other questions here. So what was the announcement that impressed you the most?
For me, I think it was pretty obvious. It was Canvas. I think this is a great spot to get into if you have to run numbers for people and you have to make predictions and you're kind of curious about machine learning and the wizardry behind the box. I think this is a great place to get into it, and I highly recommend it. And I know I'll go give it a test here once I get some downtime from writing to go play with it.
Yeah, I think that
yeah,
certainly
just on that note. Yeah, just on that note, Will, I just want to kind of bring up the point of. As a team, we're going to take all these kind of features and announcements and review them over the next couple of weeks or so, and just put forward a bit of a roadmap of new content that we're going to create, either courses or blogs, labs, etc. Just to let you know that we're going to be focusing on all of these new releases and getting some great content out there for you to help you kind of travel through the forest of all of these announcements and help you on your way to start using these services and features as well in your own production environment. So just keep a lookout for that going forward. We're going to be writing new courses and writing blogs, etc., and using these firsthand, so we can kind of uncover all the little bugs and know-hows and how-tos for you to make it easy. So.
Yeah, and Will, along the same lines of getting these types of hands-on experiences. Cloud Academy provides a tremendous amount of labs besides the content that Stu mentioned, and really serves as a skills intelligence platform for you to be able to sort of build up a skills database and do analytics on different gaps you have in your organization in terms of education and training, and then sort of being able to tactfully attack that and develop learning paths for people who are using the platform. So we encourage you to check out Cloud Academy and see the different types of training we have available. Let's see what other questions we have. So what new service do you see yourself going to implement first? So anybody here see any particular service that excites them the most?
I quite like AWS Security and all the different security services that there are. So I want to check out
you wrote a book on that, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah, I might have done, yeah. So yeah, I want to check out the new inspector service because that's had a big revamp. So I'm going to have a little bit of a play with that and hopefully get some content out for that fairly soon.
Very good. So another question we have is the new Elk stack. Any quote on this? So Elastic. Okay. So another question.
Not stage.
Yeah,
I need to look into that.
Yeah, very good. What new APIs and services are you most excited about?
That's very similar to the previous question, but like in general, I think anything that is helping people get into the cloud easier, because the cloud is the future, and so is machine learning, I think is great. So any of the new tech that came out that is just a slight ramp into this space, I think is great, and really should be like praised.
Sounds great. Okay, wrapping up here, I think we might have one or two more questions here. So AWS Exams have a 6-month delay for new features. So in Cloud Academy, do you follow this strictly, this rule for pre-courses?
Yeah, we try to stick to this rule. So as new features and services are announced, we try to get the content out there as quick as possible. And then we have the ability just to integrate these lectures and courses with the certification learning paths when they start finding their way into the questions. And as a team, we regularly sit the exams just so we're familiar with the content in there to make sure that we are generating the learning paths that have all the information that you need to sit the exams. So yeah, that's definitely something we follow.
I agree with Stuart. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We stay on top, and more importantly, for any reason you take a module or you see a module and you notice that something is dated or inaccurate, you can always report it, support@cloudacademy.com. That's going to arrive to one of us, and it's definitely going to be paid attention to, and we're going to mitigate it as quickly as possible in the next revision for the course. So you also have an input if you see something that happens. You can always contribute and help out, but we do stay on top, and we try to, for example, the second version of the solutions, the SysOps Associate, the moment that exam was released in July, we had a learning path already prepared for that particular exam that now has a hands-on component. So that's just one example of how that has happened previously, and has happened a number of times also with the content in all platforms.
And if you're already a Cloud Academy customer, you'll probably regularly see when you're completing a learning path that you'll go back to it, and you'll see a message saying some content has been updated, etc., etc., etc. And that's where we add in either new courses, new labs, update existing content to make sure that it aligns with the blueprint of the exam guide.
Here's a question for you, Stu, around the topic of security. So do you think that some of what AWS is doing is competing with security vendors more aggressively, especially with SIEM vendors?
I think there's always been kind of a partnership between AWS and a lot of the vendors. You do kind of see year on year new features and announcements coming out in the security space. I didn't think there was as many this year. I was kind of hoping for a few more new security services, if I'm honest. But it seems like they kind of doled that down this year. Obviously, there was certain security features across different services. But from a new service perspective, I think there was only really the new inspector, and I think there was some advancements made in Shield as well. So I think they kind of tend to partner with a lot of security vendors, and there's a whole list of approved security vendor partners as well. So I don't think massively at this stage. How about you, Will and Jorge? Would you agree with it?
Absolutely. I will have to go also for this reInvent in particular. Security focused for the most part on enhanced network, Internet of Things type security, and improved security for containers. One of the more significant is what Stuart mentioned, the introduction of the new Amazon Inspector. The older Amazon Inspector is now called Inspector Classic, which is AWS way of saying the time will come where this will be deprecated. And
in fact, the classic network is coming to an end soon, I believe.
Yeah, if anything, I think a lot more options to have been exposed in the security field that, in terms of APIs, data exchange, that you could sort of tie in from a larger variety of vendors.
Yep.
Okay. Very good. So I think we're coming close to wrapping up here. Any other comments here from Jorge, Will, Stu?
No,
Great to be here.
we kind of, yeah. I think we covered a lot of things. If you have any questions on any of the announcements that we've spoken about today, then feel free to get in touch. If you want to see any new content of any announcements or features that you've heard through the previous week, then also please let us know. We can kind of hopefully build that into our roadmap going forward. But yeah, it's been great chatting with you guys, to kind of discussing reInvent's announcements. There's a whole ton of features and elements we didn't have time to discuss, but would be all day, I think, if we went through everything. So, but hopefully it's helped some of you guys for joining the call on the call. So thank you very much for making the time.
Yep, very much. Thank you for attending this webinar from Cloud Academy, and please look for the link of the recording that will be shared. And if you have any further questions, please come to cloudacademy.com, and we'll be happy to answer them for you. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.